In this video I'll be showing you how to create the bamboo shoot pleats in a bodice block. The pleats are just really an exaggerated form of dart manipulation, so I'm going to show you how I close the dart in this block that I'm using. I'm tracing around a half scale block. It's the front one, you can tell because there's one notch on the armhole. So I've drawn around the outside and now I'm drawing in where the darts would go. Once that's done, you can cut along the dart line and then you simply close the one you don't want, and that pushes the extra fabric down to the place where you do want it to go. So if you made this up, there would only be a dart going from the waist up to the bust point. To create the extra fabric that I need for the dart, you can just fold it close, and you can see the tiny little point at the bottom there that finishes off the dart. So whenever you're creating a new block, you don't need to put any seam allowance on until right at the very end. So I'm cutting out exactly along the seam lines. The design that I'm making isn't symmetrical, so I need to work with the whole of the front block. So I'm tracing this off on the fold of a piece of paper so that I'll have both sides to work with at once. I'm just using the end of a compass to mark the point of the dart, and then I can trace that in. So I've cut that out. As I'm going to be closing these darts anyway, I'm going to cut it out there, and then I can draw on the design that I want. So I'm going right from the bust point to the other side, and then again from the bust point, and I'm going to use the fold line as that marks the centre. So as I'm moving up the bodice, I like to keep everything square, but you don't have to do that. So I'm just using the right angles on my set square so that I know where everything goes, and I'm going to make each pleat 3 centimetres wide. So here you can start to see the design taking shape. The lines that I'm drawing are what the actual finished bodice will look like once it's folded up. You're going to need some sellotape for the next stage. And the first thing I'm going to do is close the waist dart on the left hand side. So I'm cutting along the line and closing that one there. So as I go through this, anywhere there's grey paper, that's going to be a solid piece of fabric, and anywhere where I've added in the white paper, that's going to be the pleats. So I'm taping that bit down into the space that I made, and then just like I did before when I was moving the dart, I'm folding that over, and then I'm just going to cut off the excess so that I get the right shape that I need to sew the finished garment. And when that's done, I can open it up, and I'm drawing a line from the top of that dart to the bottom of it, right through the centre along the fold line that I made, and extending the next line that I'm going to cut into that extra piece of paper. So now just cut up the new line that you've made and along the next fold line as well, and then close that dart. So now we add some paper into the new section that we've just opened up. And we're repeating the process again. So fold along there, close that one, and then you can see the extra piece of paper there that I just need to snip off. So if I fold that out of the way, I can get to it nice and easily, cut that off, and that's the end of that dart. So extend the line and extend the line of the next fold. And so that's your new cutting line. So you can make these as wide as you want to. The more that you open the dart, the more obvious the pleat will be. So the piece of paper I used here is a bit too big, so I'm just cutting off the excess, just to make it easier for me to manipulate this paper template. And then you just continue opening up the grey paper, adding in the extra until you get to the top. Once you've finished the pattern, you would then put it onto another piece of paper and add your seam allowance all the way around the outside edge, if you're attaching it to a back piece. I'm not, so I've put it straight onto a piece of calico and cut it out. There's quite a lot of starch in calico, so it holds creases quite well. So I'm able to transfer the fold lines easily through by just folding the pattern back into the shape and pressing down on it. You could also use an iron. If you're using a different piece of fabric that won't hold the creases, you could use tailor's tacks or mark it with a piece of chalk. So that's done, so I'm taking out the pins. And I'm just going to check that I made all the marks that I needed to by folding it up. So that's the front and then the back. So now I can sew it in place. So I just fold over and starting from the top and working my way down. You could sew the whole way along the crease if you wanted to. But I'm just going to stitch the last 3 centimetres, which is where the pleats meet each other. When you reach the last fold, be careful that when you fold it over you're getting a straight line across the bottom of the bodice, and then just stitch it in place. I've used a running stitch to tack everything down. You could do this on the sewing machine if you wanted to. There you go, that's the finished bodice front.